Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Card Show. I am joined by, I'm going to say the man, the myth, the legend, someone who's been in the hobby for a very long time. And people know from around the hobby and from shows, and people probably use your services. But I don't think people actually know much about the man behind the Instagram handle. So I'm honoured and privileged to have you on. I'm shocked that you've not been on another podcast before because, again, you've been a bit of a mainstay in the hobby for a long time now. So, yeah, I'm very privileged that you've come on to this one to share your story. But it's Jim Sports Cards. So, now welcome.
No, thank you very
Hey.
much. Yeah, like you said, it's been a weird one. I've been in the hobby compared to most people, I would say a fairly long time. And obviously, I've seen the great podcast that you guys do. That I think MGC do one now.
Yeah.
There's been a few all over the place, so it's nice to be able to actually do one and kind of talk about kind of my experiences from kind of this side of where I see the hobby and things like that.
Well, yeah, definitely. I think you've got some valuable information, valuable tips that's going to help a lot of people, that listen that I think people may not know. And think also well, they'll hear a lot of your side of the story that people will never know how you went into hobby and your side. So I'm really interested in myself because I don't know a lot of it myself. So, yeah, so what did get you into the hobby? How did you get started?
So I mean, it's interesting. I remember it very, very clearly. Like most people, it was like 2020, back in COVID.
Yeah,
Um,
COVID.
and I probably took a, a different approach to most people because, yes, like everyone, I collected match attacks and cards when I was younger, like back in 2006, 2007. And what actually happened is I was going through the year before COVID. I went over to Toronto to watch the Toronto Raptors. They're my basketball team. I've supported them for well over 10 years now. And then after that, I was always looking for like vintage jerseys or like apparel or stuff like
Yes.
that because I really like the brand. And it meant that, like, especially whilst COVID was going on, I was just scrolling through places like Depop, Vinted, eBay, just to see like any vintage jerseys coming up, anything new, unique, interesting. Because like there were some random jerseys for like 20 quid that I was like, yeah, that's an easy purchase.
Yeah.
And then I remember one day I was looking at some other jerseys. I was looking at trying to get one of the Memphis Grizzly throwback jerseys, and then I was
Nice.
looking to get a Zion jersey. And when I was looking for Zion jerseys on Depop, up came this trading card, and I was like, I have no idea what this is, and it was graded, and I was like, no idea. I think it was like an Illusions. It was up for like 300 quid, and I was like, what the hell is this? Um, and literally from that moment just started the complete rabbit hole of googling, searching, learning every single thing I could about cards, about the sport, about basketball cards, about grading. And yeah, from there it kind of just spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. So that was like June, July 2020, and then I set up my grading services January 2021.
Wow. So I've got to ask, did you buy the Zion card?
I didn't.
Okay. That's good. What was your first purchase?
My first ever purchase, I do
Yeah.
remember it. It was on eBay, and it was a Kyle Lowry card.
Okay.
Um, there was a couple of eBay purchases. It happened in like quite a short period of time. There are a couple of eBay purchases of like random lots, and I definitely overpaid because I just thought the cards were cool and I had no idea what they were worth.
We all did. We
Um,
all did.
had those. Then I bought a couple of Illusions packs, um, or no, Chronicles packs, and I got a green Zion rookie. So that's like the first
Oof.
like rookie pool. Um, and then yeah, it kind of just went from there, and then eventually went from getting singles to then learning about, oh, there are other places like these Facebook groups and Instagram and the US, and then it kind of just spiraled from there.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So you obviously you got sort of into hobby through memorabilia, and then you decided to sort of start a middleman service. What sort of led you down that road? Obviously, I know you did all the research, but what do you think? You know what, I can offer a good service to the UK here.
Yeah, so there there's no nice way to say this without being a little bit, I guess, mean. Um, I remember getting into it, and I remember seeing I remember like finding out about car grading and like how difficult it was to do in the UK. And I don't know if you remember, but back in 2020, 2021, there was one submitter in the UK, and that was a company called Graded Gem.
Yes.
Um, Very infamous now for a lot of reasons, which won't touch on in this podcast. But I remember watching their YouTube videos, and what they would do is they would make a video of people, what they're submitting, and then make a video of what they came back as. And I just remember, I think his name's Connor. I just remember, and not his fault in the slightest, because they were Pokemon guys, right? If you look at it in the UK, Pokemon cards and grading is still massive compared to sports, and we think sports
Yeah,
is big. Pokemon
yeah,
is. I would assume there are 10 times the amount of Pokemon cards graded in the UK than there are sports cards, for example.
yeah,
Um,
easily.
and I remember him getting these sports cards in and just absolutely butchering the names. And that's kind of where it started. And then I started to look, and I was like, when he was showing these different cards, I was like, well, this Pokemon card's really thin and it's got rounded corners and the surface is a bit different. But if I look at this sports card, it's slightly thicker. You've got a different surface. I was like, how how do these Pokemon experts know enough about football to be able to offer a same service or whatever sport
Yeah.
it was? Um, and that's kind of where I started. I was like, there is no one in the UK making and operating a grading service for sports cards. Like, this is long before the days of SGC, wherever around, long before the days of MGC, of anyone
Yeah.
like that. It was literally the grading club were offering PSA, and that was it. Um, so then that kind of happened in October, November time, September, October time, 2020. And basically, after I kind of sat down and watched that video, I was like, right, I am going to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours just learning everything I can about sports cards grading, specifically for sports cards. And then eventually, when I felt confident enough that I knew what I was doing, I had done enough research, I had done enough practice myself, I was like, okay, now this is a service that I can offer to sports cards collectors for someone they can relate to, someone that knows sports cards, know how they grade, knows the process, and it's not just sending to, with all due respect, a bunch of Pokemon guys that can't pronounce the name Ibrahimovic.
Mhm. Yeah, you know what? I also applaud you for that because a lot of people will see that and just go, "Oh yeah, no, but it's easier. It's easier sent to them." And you said, "You know what? It may be easier if we just do that. I'm gonna start it. I'm gonna put the hours in, put the work in,
Yeah,
and sort of perfect your craft." And let's face it, you could have done that to no avail. Someone would have gone, "Oh well, I would use them and never use you," but you still put the work in. So
yeah.
yeah,
Like I saw that there was no one doing it for sports, and I was like, that's kind of the first place to start. And since then,
yeah,
it's grown, and like the hobby has grown massively, and a lot of things have changed. And we'll talk about kind of that journey over the last 3, 4 years. But so many people since I started have come and gone. Like, I've seen
yeah,
15 to 20 different Facebook groups or companies pop up, whether it's someone like me that started by themselves, or whether it's someone starting a limited company and starting big and starting from the top. And within 3, 4, 5 months, they're not here because they haven't kind of thought through the process of how much work and effort and issues it is. Because especially when I started in my first submission was February 2021. March 2021, PSA shut down. So there are very, very few people in this hobby that went through the grading difficulties that I did in the first 6 to 9 months of me even operating this service.
yeah, for sure. That must have been like how did you cope with that? Because I'm sure people will message like, "What's going on?" And
Coped. Like, looking back, I was lucky that the people that, because one approach that I've always tried to take is a very personable approach to grading. You can always come and talk to me. I'm not hiding behind a company or a logo, or like, it's always me. I will always be personable with you. You can always message me on Instagram. We'll talk through things. You'll come see me at shows. So I'm lucky that I took that approach from the start, because it meant that the people then that submitted with me, once I explained the situation, they understood. Um, it was difficult because I had a submission. I remember I had like a 120 card submission packaged up in a box. FedEx was booked to pick it up the next day, and that night PSA shut it down. They were like, if you have not shipped your submission to us, it will be rejected at the door. And I was like, I've got 120 people's cards here. What do I do? And so I had to go through each person, talk to them individually. PSA had no idea when they would be reopening or what
yeah,
they would do, because for the people that don't have context, basically in 2020, 2021, obviously the hobby exploded, and so did card grading. And PSA wait times went from 2 to 3 months to 9 to 12 months. And eventually, at the start of 2021, PSA said, "Cool, we're shutting our doors, and we're not taking anything else new in. We're going to completely clear our backlog and then slowly reintroduce." So when they shut down, we had no information. No one had any information, whether
Yeah.
you were someone like me that had just started or the big time submitters in the US. No one knew anything about what was going on. So I had some people messaging me saying, "No, I want to keep the cards, wait until PSA comes back." I had some people say, "Well, how long is it going to be?" I had some people say, "Give me my cards back." Um, so that was a whole process. And then when PSA did eventually reopen, they started taking submissions again 3 to 4 months afterwards. It was only the really expensive submissions.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
then
yeah.
you have to have some awkward conversation with people being like, if you want to submit this card, it was 30, now it's 90, 120, because that's PSA were only reopening the most expensive ones because they had to limit how many they took in. Um, so much of the work and time and research I had done getting into it then completely flipped on its head because 2021 was just the weirdest year for grading. I still have now on my phone. I never took them off. I still have PSA notifications on Twitter just because I had to, because every time PSA would be tweeting out something like, "Oh, we're now accepting these cards," or, "Oh, we've now expanded them. You can now increase your submissions." Like at one point, they had a submission limit that you could only do a certain amount of cards each. Um, so yeah, that was particularly brutal start to trying to operate a business in the hobby, so to speak.
Yeah, I can imagine the stress that would cause. You know, you're just starting out, and all of a sudden it said 120 people's cards. You know, some people's pride and joy. You know.
Exactly. Like the main thing, and I learned that very, very quickly through that process, is people just want to know. Like even if the answer is not a good answer, it's such a it's such a scary experience for some people taking something that has a lot of sentimental value, it's their pride and joy,
Yeah.
and giving it to someone else that just says, "Okay, now I'm trusting you with it." And then obviously a load of uncertainty happens and you're not sure what's happening or what's going on. I learned very, very early on, you just have to be in constant communication with people. Tell them what's going on, tell them what the situation is. If the update is there is no update, then that's also fine. But you have to remember that for a lot of people, for some people, it is money. They see a
Yeah.
£500 card, they see that they want to sell it. For a lot of people, it's, "Oh, my granddad gave me this card," or "I got this card with my dad when we went to our first football game together," or "I pulled this card at Christmas," or something. Like
Yeah.
you have to also take that into account as well, which is really important.
Yeah. I mean, for people that don't know, they're like, could you go through the process that people have to go through to grade cards? Because a lot of people may not have used middleman before and may not know what was required from them. So you know.
Yeah. So I think where I started and where I came from was never to try and be a middleman service, because that kind of just, it's very much cards in, cards out. And you kind of, with that business model, you operate on bulk and you operate on how many can I do, because the essential process to grade a card at PSA is you have to fill out a form online, package up your cards, send them to PSA in California. They will then grade the cards for you, send them back to you. There's customs and tax issues with that, um, and then you get it back. The reason why I exist and the reason why other people offer grading services throughout the UK is, A, to send yourself to PSA can be very expensive. You have to have a membership, which is between $150 and $200 a year. You have to pay shipping and insurance there, which to California is expensive, especially if you're going to be shipping valuable items. You have to pay shipping and insurance back. And it's also just, what the biggest thing that I found as well is, it's just a big knowledge gap for some people. People don't want to
Sure.
deal with learning about it and signing up and packaging up themselves. They would much rather, like 95% of these people in this hobby, they have their normal lives. They would much rather not spend the time, give it to someone else to deal with, and then just reap the rewards and get the graded card back. Um, where I started and where I kind of wanted to differentiate myself is actually talking to people, educating them, and working with them on the condition and quality of their cards. So I don't know if you remember, but I think the first ever quote unquote card show in the UK was at Wolverhampton Wanderers
Wolverhampton.
Stadium. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was there at the very first card show, set up in the corner, and I had all of my equipment and
COVID masks on, everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
most importantly, my magnifying lens light, which I look to use to assess the condition of a card. And that's kind of where I started. I was like, what's going to make me stand out and what's going to make me different? Because I was like, I don't just want to be someone who is operating a shipping service, taking cards, shipping, taking, returning. I want to actually try and add value, help people not submit cards that aren't worth grading. So that's where I really first started, is helping people look at the condition of their cards. Has it got a scratch, a mark, a bump? Because of the depth of knowledge I had learned, especially through my own submissions, but also online, working out, okay, if it has this mark or this dent, is it likely to be a 9 or a 10? If it has this, is it going to be an 8 or a 9? And kind of using all of that to help educate people on, okay, yes, I would grade this because I think it could be worth a 9 or a 10 and therefore this much, or actually I probably wouldn't grade this because it will only grade a 9 if you're looking to make money, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it all started. And then since back in 2021, 2022, I've kind of gone through a fair few changes in my journey in the hobby, but especially now that niche I'm in grading is really helping people with very specific cards that they want to get graded. I'm not the person if you want 50 cards graded as cheap as possible. I'm the person if you want 10 cards graded, but you want them to get the best grades possible.
See, people need to know. People need to know these things because like you said, it's very easy if someone just go to maybe someone else because you got do you know what, I'll just get well and not getting information back. So they just send the cards in, not really knowing what's going to happen. Oh, it might come back a 10, it might come back a 7. Whereas it's you, they're getting feedback there and then, hey, listen, maybe not. And you're someone who's that said, not just taking the money there, you're actually giving valuable stuff for them to go, okay, cool, no problems. Let's face it, how many cards have we sent off in the past? I mean, I don't know about yourself, but for myself, you sent off and it's come back and it's a 7 or 8. You think, why did I do this to myself? Why did I
Yeah.
do this? Why did I not spend the extra few seconds looking over or get a second opinion? You think, Jesus.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about it is everyone is different and has different priorities. You will get some people, and there are some great guys in the UK that offer very similar services. The biggest in the UK at the moment being the Sub Centre.
Yeah.
They do hundreds and thousands of cards every single year. As far as I'm aware, they don't tell you about condition or they don't look at the card, but they are significantly cheaper. So if you're someone that has the time to look at the cards yourself and your main prerogative is to save money, you've absolutely got an option with them. If you don't have the time to look at it, or you've got a card that's more valuable, I've got a great story about a Messi that I graded for someone a few weeks ago. Then that's kind of where I kind of step in, and that's something that I found very early on. Is when I first started in the hobby, I was the only one. I was the only one doing any
Yeah.
kind of sports cards grading. Um, and then as PSA opened back up, as SGC became more popular and other people came in, I kind of found myself having to have the need to adapt. I was like, I can't continue like this because other people can hire more people, do it bigger, do it faster, do it better. How am I going to keep myself relevant? And how am I going to keep myself essentially in business? But also, how do I make it so I still enjoy what I'm doing? Like
Yeah.
we said off air just before we started, everyone always refers to it as the hobby, but people don't often stop and think. It's still a hobby. I still have a normal life. I still have a regular 9 to 5 job. I'm not going to spend my time after work on the weekends taking days off doing something I don't enjoy. So all the time throughout my journey through cards, I've always made sure to take stock and stop and think, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Is it working? Do I need to change the way I'm doing things? And every time I've kind of done that and changed things, it's then got a little bit better and a little bit more what I want to do. And now I feel like I am in a place where things are exactly where I want them, which is it's taken 4 years, but well worth it.
Definitely, yeah. Listen, so say slow progress, better no progress, and you progress each year, and it's helped. And again, you know, let's face it, how many of these businesses in this hobby or this industry, when I call it, have been in it for 2 or 3 years, and that their reputation has gone like this, and then off a cliff, just fell off, and you've consistently stayed there. You've took your time off to recharge, get back, and you've always kept the people sort of informed what you're doing. So I think it's helped. Like I said, people always want
Yeah.
to know, and some people just disappear face the earth, and you're thinking, you got my card, you got this, and business just disappear. You think, wow. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
because
commendable.
I've had it before, like a couple of people, like I've made over the years, I think I've made like 2 or 3 quote unquote announcements on Instagram about like changes to what I'm doing or how I'm doing it. And a few people like to laugh and joke about it. But then you've got I can't remember their name, but there was again a very big reputable PSA submission center that closed business at the start of this year.
Yep.
And they didn't give people any communication. People were messaging me saying, "Do I know them? Do I know what's going on?" Because people see PSA and put two and two together, which I don't blame them to do. Um, but it goes back to what I was saying to you when I first had those problems when I started with PSA. Is I will always over communicate rather than under communicate. Like
Yeah.
I would always rather tell people exactly what's going on, what the plan is, what the deal is, rather than kind of just try and power on and be like, no, people will find out eventually.
Yeah, I guess so when it gets
It's one of
sorted.
those valuable things that I realized early on, which has helped massively.
Just a quick one on sort of the prep as well. So I know that you're big into sort of going over them. You magnifying glass. I remember that at shows as well.
Yeah.
Uh, what's your thoughts on sort of the cleaning materials? Whether it's Mr. Minty, Kurtz, etc. Sort of smile on your face.
It's such an interesting topic, and it genuinely is really interesting because there's one side of the story which is everyone wishes that every card came out of the pack perfect. That's like the responsibility of the manufacturer. They should be making perfect condition cards every time. And the fact that you can pull a card out of a pack and it's not perfect is a bit of a farce. On the flip side, if that happened, a PSA 10 would be worth nothing. Because the only reason a PSA 10 is worth anything is because it is in perfect condition and better than the rest. So if you start from kind of that point of acknowledging that there will always need to be a gap, that's when the conversation of cleaning and polishing and everything else comes into it. And it is a difficult subject to think about evenly because I think there is a fine line between cleaning and tampering. I
Okay.
think at the bare minimum, anything you do with a magnifying lens and a microfiber cloth is absolutely fine. Um, there's fingerprint marks. There's sometimes you'll get a card out of a pack and the cutter on the machine hasn't cut it perfectly and you've got some frayed edges. Um, that is absolutely fine. No issues with that whatsoever. Then you start to kind of go down this slippery slope of whether you use something like polish or other types of treatments. Where I sit personally is as long as you do not, it's very hard to give a nuanced take.
Hmm.
Ultimately, I think it's important because the whole idea of the hobby is when you reduce it all the way back to what it is and you take away all of the investing and you take away the buying and the selling, the whole idea of a trading card is it's supposed to be nice to look at. That's the whole point. People get excited. You have all of these different color parallels. You have your favorite player, your favorite team. It might be a certain image. So ultimately, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to do something to help the way that looks if it's been damaged out of your control before that's happened. So if it's come out of a pack and you've got a massive thick surface scratch, which you can see on the front, if you use materials that are not going to harm the card or have adverse long-term effects and it will improve the eye quality of the card, I have no problems with it because the whole point of that card is to be visually appealing. You've been kind of dealt a bad hand by the manufacturer and you're just kind of bringing it back up to the status quo.
Yeah.
What I have an issue with is then if you're trying to go above the status quo. So there was a video, a Australian card YouTuber I watch called Dan the Card Man, and he highlighted there was someone who had a Luka Doncic contenders autograph, but the autograph on the card was over the top of a scratch on the card. That submitter has decided to polish the card in order to remove the scratch, but it's also removed part of the autograph. Now, this submitter was bragging that the card went from a 9 to a 10, but when you compared the autograph side by side, one was very visibly worse. And that's when I have a massive issue with it, because you've
Yeah,
altered a fundamental part of the card. Same goes with any kind of trimming, any kind of coloring. Like, if you're fundamentally changing the card like that and you're going above the status quo almost, then that's when it's an issue.
yeah, I tend to agree with you on most parts there. I think you can't be coloring it or altering it. At least when it is altered, it does come back altered more than not. But like there needs to be a bit more research. Like all this Kurt's card care, like I said, it could affect it in the long run. Like it'd be painful to buy a very nice card and a tennis maybe you spent a lot of money on, and then 5 years down the line, the UV lights affects it, and the cream on the card has affects the card, and all of a sudden it wouldn't even be a 7. It'd be horrible. So yeah, I agree. Not sure a problem with it, but we just be careful out there. Jesus.
Yeah, because it, like, for me, it was something that I had to look at very much when I was deciding what to do and how to operate my business. And it's one of those things that, again, I just had to reduce it down to, where does this hobby actually start? And it's like, the buying and trading and selling for money is a huge, huge part of it, but that came after the collecting part. So I'm
Yeah.
like, if you're, obviously, it comes down to intention. If you're polishing a card or cleaning a card for your own personal collection, I will never ever have an issue with it. That also means that by having that viewpoint, I can't have an issue if you're doing it to then improve it and sell it for money. Um, because I think that first view is so important. Of the whole point is, you collect what you love and what you like the look of. If you're doing it to improve the visuals of the card, that you essentially were dealt a bad hand, I can't disagree. But then you get into a lot of, I mean, it's been the talk of the hobby all year, basically, about what I
Yes.
would describe as like hobby ethics, whether it's cleaning a card or whether it's CT scanning boxes. Like, it comes down to, like, what started as a hobby is now so dominated by money, and that's very much dictating what the kind of standard practices are.
Yeah, there's just the CT scanners. I mean, I think that's the thing. Like I said, we always refer to it as a hobby and it's Swiss hobbies, but it is a multi-million dollar pound industry. There's big companies that operate in this, and now there's a lot of people trying to get a piece of that pie as well. It's crazy. I couldn't. Yeah, where CT scanners like it's just. I
Yeah,
reckon you'll
it's
see it at a show one time. You're gonna go to a show and you'll see someone with a little CT scanner in the back, just going through
honest,
someone else's wax.
honestly, like, it's one of the worlds that I've never got involved in, and I'm very happy I did, in the whole breaking, box selling, hobby ripping kind of side. And knowing that, like, if you're one of these big time rollers that can afford to buy one of the Victor Wembanyama Mercury boxes, um,
Serious.
like, I saw a video where one was CT scanned and you could literally see the serial number on the card. And I was like, why would you ever buy a box ever again, just
Yeah.
because of how high risk that someone already knows what's in it? Um, yeah, it's why a lot of the times I like to stay. It sounds kind of like a bit cliche, but I like to stay grounded with my own cards and my own collection. Like, regardless of what happens, if grading went to hell and the hobby was no more, I organized it the other week. I still have well over 300 Toronto Raptors cards in my PC that I'm like,
Nice.
even if they were worth nothing, I love them. I love to look at them. I love the memories they have. And, like, as long as I always keep bringing myself back to that, then everything else is kind of inconsequential. It's like, it's a nice bonus to be able to buy a Zion Williamson rookie card and then sell it in a year to make money. But as long as you know that that's nice and not why you're in it in the first place, then that's kind of where it sits for me.
Yeah, 100%. The last little one there on grading. You said a minute ago about, if they're all come out perfect, the price of PSA 10s would, completely drop down. Da, da, da. What's your thoughts on the current market with 10s, 9s? Because you know as well as anyone the difference. I mean, I pick up 9s because the price is so low. And like honestly, the difference in the cards from most people's naked eye, you can't tell the difference between a 9 and 10. It looks pretty much the same, and it'd be something that under the microscope you probably have to see, but it's just in my eyes, it's crazy. I pick up 9s willy nilly. Me, I pick 'em up like it's no one's business. It's crazy.
It is, and it comes from this horde of people that, again, I don't have any problem with. I just think differently of tens or bust, and that's really where this hobby has gone over the last few years. I think when I first started to get in the hobby, it was a raw card was normally worth roughly what a PSA 8 is, a 9 was a slight premium, and 10 was a big premium. And now that's shifted into a 9 is now the same, if not slightly less than a raw card, and I'll explain
Yep.
that in a minute. And then a 10 is the premium. And it's because you have, I guess, so many people that have this mentality of I want 10s or nothing. I know plenty of collectors in the UK that will not have a card that isn't they won't have a graded card unless it is a 10 in their collection. And it really comes back to what I would call an old adage, but I guess it's not. It's buy the card, not the grade.
Yeah.
Um, for my PC, it is incredibly rare that I will ever buy a PSA 10. I will either buy raw and keep it raw or grade it myself, or I will buy a PSA 9 because unless it goes back to what I was saying, my cards for my PC are intended to be in a box or on my shelf to look at. Visually, if I'm sat at my desk and my card is 4 feet away on my shelf over there, I cannot tell the difference if that is a 9 or a 10. If I can, and it's like horribly off center, or there's like something like that, then yes, I will always take that into account. But personally, for my collection, I can't justify the premiums unless I ever think maybe I want to sell this in the future. That's the kind of the only reason of, yeah, I like this card now. There is a chance in 3, 4 years' time, once this player's left my team, I'll probably
Yeah.
want to sell it. Um, but it is very interesting as to where the balance of play lies in 8 versus 9 versus 10 versus raw. Um, and it's tough because now what you're seeing a lot of people doing is a raw will now sell less than a 9, not because it's worth less, but because with raw you have the opportunity cost of getting a 10, whereas with raw with 9 you're kind of locked in. um like I bought myself my own PC a PSA 9 rookie card last night, and I paid $35 for it, and I'm like, that's crazy because I know to grade it that person paid 20, $25. um and that card there are no PSA 10s either. So I was like, I'm getting a great deal, but I also felt bad because I was like, it's crazy that a 9 does not command any sort of premium. Like
Yeah.
even if it's 5 to 10%, I think a 9 should always command a premium because you've gone to the levels to get it graded, encapsulated, authentically graded, so you know the actual numerical score of the card. For that to then go less than raw is very tough. But again, it comes down to the fact that I think more and more people are either perfectionist collectors that want tens, or they simply want to buy to sell, and they know that they can sell a 10 a lot easier than they can a 9. So that's kind of why we've seen this gradual creep up into the world of 10 or bust, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I said it on a previous podcast. I think no one really wants accurate grading. Let's be honest. People do not want accurate grading. Because if they did, they wouldn't be going to PSAs consistently. You're getting 10 1 week, then a 9. It's just this weird status over it has to be PSA 10. And look at SGC 9s or even BGS 9.5 stuff like it's like they just like you said, you buy you can go on the market and buy absolute steals at 9s, 9.5s for this 10 or bust scenario. It's a great time, I think, for pickle cards for personal collection. I've been doing it.
Yeah, and I
You know,
think it's when you kind of get into that conversation about why is a PSA 10 worth more, it's just because it's the most trusted and it's been around the longest. And trust in this hobby is such a big thing that you need to have faith that when you buy that card, it will still collectively, the hobby will still value it in 10, 20 years' time. Whether that's a specific player, or whether that's a specific card type or brand, or whether that's a grading company. And it's kind of a wisdom of the crowd's effect. The more people that use a grading company, the more people start to value it, the more it's worth. Therefore, because that card is now worth more people start to grade, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. So
Yeah.
you see, it's also why you see very quick declines like BGS when people leave that and they don't trust the brand and they don't trust what it's worth. Then people stop grading, and people stop grading. There's less cards. When there's less cards, people trust it less, and it goes down and down and down. And that's why jostling for grading space in this hobby is so hard to do, because you have to make such a clear distinction of, hypothetically it should be a permanent decision of, if I choose to grade this card with this company, that's permanent, I can't change it.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make a decision that isn't the most trusted and well known, and therefore because you do that, more people in the future are going to make the same decision you do, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. um, it's why it's so impressive to see what some of the companies in the UK have done, like MGC, because I know firsthand when I started in the grading card world, if you don't have trust, you have nothing. If people don't trust you to look after their cards, to ship them with insurance, to ship them correctly, to get them back to you in a timely manner, if people, you can have all the proof. If people don't trust and believe in what you're saying, you're worth nothing. And it's the same with someone like Jake over at MGC. And I have so much respect for what he's done, because you have to start and you have to say that I'm going to put this card with this grading company and trust that in 2, 3, 5 years time it's going to be worth as much as it's worth now, basically. And
Yeah.
to be able to grow that trust and get the amount of people going through the company and consistently grading with them, it's like I said, it's a snowball effect. It's, you get one or two people that then they grade more, and because you see more of them, you then get more people doing it, and it grows and grows and grows. And it's really, really impressive to see, because it's so hard to do.
Oh yeah, they've smashed it for the UK. I think doing the groundworks of being at every show, it's like they've put their face. Like I said, the trust issue. They've done a lot. I think there's been a few times they've had issues go wrong, and they've rectified it tenfold, haven't they? And so it's a massive shout out to Jake, and it's crazy. It's crazy what he's done. It's basically out to
Yeah, it's
NBC.
all trust. Like, you can say that probably about most areas in the hobby, but I would say grading more than most. It's just all trust. It's why, especially with what I do and with when I started, and back in the day, I used to do YouTube videos as well, which was so much effort. Um, it's why I was always like, you need to put your face forward. You can't hide behind a brand. You have to be the person at shows talking to people. You have to build that trust, that you're not just operating a service and you know nothing about it, that people see your own collection and people see you're part of the hobby and people see that you're invested and that you're just like them in terms of collecting. It's just that you do the grading as well, and it's such a big part of everything.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how many you've dealt with, but I did see a lot of your posts, and you were very early on, one of the first people I saw cracking the latest PSA slabs. Your thoughts on all this cracking and resubmitting? 'Cause obviously, it does mess around with pop reports, and people do love pop reports to sort of say, "Oh, this is really rare," because look at the pop of PSA 10s. How reliable are they if everyone's cracking? Like, what's your thoughts on cracking them? Any advice to people who want to crack slabs and are struggling?
So there's a few things there that I'll get
Hmm.
into. And the words I will use here are very important. Cracking should not be allowed or be acceptable. It is, because grading companies are wildly inconsistent, and the market dictates that we need to. There's a really great post, if I say so myself, on my Instagram account of
Wait.
a card that I bought that was an SGC 10. The pure reason I bought it is because I've graded thousands and thousands with SGC, I've graded thousands and thousands with PSA. I saw an opportunity to buy it at a price, and I knew I could sell it at a PSA 10 for this price. And I was like, I know the grading standards for both companies. I'm very well aware of how evenly matched they are in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, in my experiences, SGC have been a harsher grader than PSA have. So I was like, cool, easy opportunity to make some money that I can then use to buy some PC cards. Cracked it, sent it to PSA, didn't touch it, didn't clean it, didn't polish it, nothing. Came back an 8. And I was like, only because I've graded in excess of 10,000 cards with PSA, and I've seen hundreds of thousands of cards in my lifetime through a magnifying glass. Only because of that could I confidently say to PSA, you're wrong. Like,
Yeah.
everyone loves to do it, and everyone loves to come up to me at a card show and say, "Oh, can you tell me why this has got a 9? Think PSA got it wrong," and I'll point out a flaw to them because people love to think that they're right and that it's PSA that are wrong,
Yeah.
which 80% of the time it's not. PSA are right. They're the experts. Unfortunately, there is a huge amount of times when PSA are wrong, and that's when I don't like the idea of cracking because it should be permanent when you slab a card. But I sent it again to PSA, cracked it out of the 8, sent it back, it got a 9. Again, didn't touch it, cracked it again, sent it to PSA, and it finally got a 10. By the time I sold the card, because of the extra grading fees I had to pay, I basically
Yeah.
broke even. But that's kind of a really good use case of, I knew that card was perfect the day I got it. It was a very simple George Russell F1 card that was basically all chrome on the front with just his photo. So there's nothing that you can't hide anything anywhere.
Yeah.
If you're going to see an issue, you're going to see it. And I was like, this card is perfect from top to bottom. So in theory, I don't like it. The grading companies make it so that you need to, and also when you want to go between companies, that's when cracking is obviously necessary. Um, if you want to go from an SGC to PSA or whatever. Um, the one thing I will say is do not underestimate cracking. So many people I've had messages from that have tried to do it themselves and have damaged the card or don't know what they're doing, and it's just heartbreaking to see. I had a friend of mine do it with a Jamaran auto to 10.
Oh no.
He cracked it and damaged the card doing it, and I was like, literally, with what I do and with what I offer, I will crack a card for you for free. I do not charge anything. If you want to send an SGC card with me to get it sent with PSA, I will crack it and send it for free because A, because I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times, it's something I'm experienced in, and B, I would so much rather do it myself than let you do it, because it's one of those things that once you know how to do it, it's easy. If you don't know how to do it, it can go wrong very, very quickly. Um, so yeah, and I think the issue is, and I think the issue that PSA kind of ran into with their new slabs is people will always find a way.
No.
PSA tried to make it so they tried to hide behind the fact, and I had a few issues with this. They tried to hide behind the fact it was a better plastic and it was 20% extra weight for the same slab, and it was better tamper proof, everything else. Nowhere once did they say that it was harder to crack. But ultimately, I think that was kind of their aim. And I was like, if you were just transparent about that, I think people would respect it a lot more.
Yeah.
But they quickly realized that they were having issues with it. I think in total, less than 100,000 cards got graded, and then they switched back to the old type. For the people listening, if you ever need to know, if you look on the back of your PSA slab on the bottom left, it will either have a L1 imprinted on it or an LR1 plus. The LR1 plus is the new slab, which is harder to crack. The L1 is the old slab, which is easier.
I didn't know that myself. So that's some great information. I did not know that. The LR1. Okay. Oh, that's fine. Interesting.
Yeah, because there's a few people, like I remember having to walk to my local hardware store to get tile nippers that you use to cut bathroom tiles because this became the tool that was useful for cracking the new type of PSA slabs. And it sounds ridiculous when you say it, but ultimately, like I said, where there's a will, there's a way.
Oh,
People
yeah.
will find a way to do it. The one thing I will say to do, and one thing that I do, is when you do crack a slab, every grading company has an email or somewhere you can contact where you can say, by the way, I've cracked this slab, please deactivate this certification number. People don't do it, but you should, because then they remove it from the pop report and things become a lot clearer. You don't get cases where I've seen before where a card number to 10 has had 12 cards in the pop report. And PSA can't do anything about it because they don't know which ones are real and which ones aren't.
Yeah.
Obviously, now they probably can if they want to, because they can go through the images and look at all of the serial numberings. But yeah, I would say if you do crack, just tell the grading company to remove it and then go about your day.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a little segue from cars just for a brief second because I want to say you're looking very clean cut and baby face. So is there a
Yes.
reason for this?
Yeah, so normally if you're seeing me at a car show or Instagram, I've got a thick mustache, and you'll see
Something I
that on my
can't grow.
Instagram as well.
Yeah, that's all I get is whiskers.
You've got the beard but no mustache.
Yeah, I get this and that's it.
So one cause I'm a big advocate for is Movember, which is throughout the month of November, men growing mustaches to raise awareness and money for men's mental health and physical health, such as prostate and testicular cancer causes. So it's a cause that's very close to my heart. It's a cause that I believe in a lot. It's something that I've done for the last 4 or 5 years. And it just so happened 3 years ago when I grew my mustache, I just kind of kept it. Um, so now the big thing for me every year isn't necessarily growing the mustache, but it's the shaving it off. So I don't know when this will come out. We're currently recording this on the 1st of November, which
Yeah.
means that this is clean shaven and this is all gone. I'm sure at the card show this weekend, I'm going to get a lot of comments and a lot of people commenting on it, which ultimately is kind of the aim, right? It's the whole point of me doing this is to then get people talking, people saying, oh, where's the mustache gone? Or, oh, you look like you're 15 again. Um, I get that one a lot. And then I can
Yep.
tell them exactly why. And it's because ultimately, when you look at the facts, one man every minute around the world commits suicide. Men are 75% of suicides around the world are men, compared to 25% being women. And testicular cancer is testicular cancer and prostate cancer are the two number one causes of death amongst men for cancer. And not only from a physical point of view, but from a mental health point of view, men do not talk enough. They do not do enough to look after themselves. And the whole point of Movember is to change that and to tell people that it's okay to talk, it's okay to say that you're not doing okay. And it's really, really important to get men talking about the topic, talking about the issue, and pointing out that your mates have got a ridiculous mustache, and then you get to start the conversation. And yes, the raising money part of it, and there is a post up on my Instagram now that will have a link for donations as well. Um, all about the raising money is very important, but what's more important is just raising awareness. So if people see a man growing a stupid mustache and they ask him why are you doing it, and he goes, oh, to raise awareness for men's mental health, that we kind of reduce and take away that stigma of men don't talk and that men can't go and talk to a therapist or someone they're close to about how they're feeling or their emotions. And yeah, every year we just try to get a few more people talking, raise a bit more awareness, and if that's at the expense of me and my baby face, then that's a more than fair price to pay.
Yeah, it's a commendable. I say I cannot grow a mustache. Yeah, I get cat whiskers and a goatee.
Yeah,
But no, it's definitely. I said the whole thing it stands for. You know, the mental health is rife. Like I said, suicide in males particularly is ridiculous. To think in 2024 that young boys and men don't feel like it's manly to talk about how you feel and will bottle up and ultimately commit suicide is ridiculous. We are a better species in that we're better evolved. We need to do better to get people aware that it's okay to cry in front of your friends. It's okay to talk about things that are not going well. It's okay not to be okay all the time. We are
exactly.
human.
And that's especially true for the hobby as well, because the hobby is 95% men. And I think everyone in this hobby knows people that they're friends with or they talk to regularly that they might not have even met in person. It's just an Instagram account that they interact with.
Yep.
And people forget to just check in if they haven't heard from someone for a while, or people forget to just be inquisitive and just see how people are doing rather than just assuming that people are okay. And it's so easy to just let that Instagram account that you used to interact with 2 to 3 times a day just go into the distance if you haven't heard from them for a week or two. Um, and with it being such a male dominated space, it's so easy to then like I'm genuinely looking forward to walking around the card show and having people laugh at me tomorrow. Like I know I've already got like a list of people that are going to take the piss, and that's so fine because then I can tell them exactly why I'm doing it, and then even if it causes nothing more than them laughing, they know what's going on, they know why, and it kind of grows a little bit every time.
Yeah, that's great. And also, there is obviously a website for people to do want to know more about this, which is uk.movember.com. So more information there as well. But yeah, it's like I say, it's a great cause you're doing it for. It's a shame that we haven't seen these things because 2024, we come to 2025, we should be in a better space than this. But unfortunately, we're not. There's still a stigma around this sort of thing, which is crazy. And like I said, this is 95% male hobby in the UK. And let's face it, we're all buying cards of men potentially. There's very, very, very few of them buying WNBA cards. So we're all buying cards of men. I know it's crazy that this is the state we're in.
Agreed.
But yes, but no, I'm glad we had that little segue because I think it's a very important topic. I'm glad you were able to bring it up. I appreciate you bringing it up. Maybe call this the Movember special. I don't know now that this will be. Yeah. Do a little. I don't know if he wants to donate. I put a link as well for any donations. Link to Jim's page to make donations. Which again, donations are great and helpful, but it's awareness. Make sure you feel that you're able to talk, whether that is to myself or it's to Jim or whoever it may be. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who are willing to listen and help. Kind of got me in the feels a little bit.
No, it's good. It's important. Like I'm always very open with people on my own personal Instagram, but also my friends. Like I go to therapy very regularly, normally at least once a month. And I often share some of the issues that I've had and struggles. And the reason I do that is not to kind of put that for the world to know or be like, oh, woe is me, but to kind of be like, if I can talk, then you can talk. If I can share it with the 2,500 followers I have on Instagram about my own mental health struggles and how I've kind of overcome them, then if that gives one person the ability to then reach out to me and be like, thank you for sharing, or it gives one person the thought of maybe I should go and talk to someone, then it's all worth it.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Like you said, one comment, one reach out can save someone's life. It really can. So don't underestimate the value a human connection can make. So yeah.
Exactly.
Now I'm going to go from that very important one to just taking Mick out now. Raptors fan.
Yep.
You are, and you're a Raptors collector. So you said just 300 that you just gone through the cards there. If you could only have one card, and money's not an object, only one, what is that card?
Do I currently own the card or any card?
Yeah, any card that's out there. I'll even let you create the card. So if you want it like a Vince Jewel.
Okay, so if I could curate the card,
yes,
it is a.
What set would it be?
I feel very blessed. I actually own one of the cards I would consider for this, but one of the cards I've always wanted to own is a card that has a NBA championship tag. So,
okay.
For every basketball team that wins a championship, they get a little gold tag on the back of their neck with the NBA title and a number that says how many titles they've won. And Panini puts these into cards. They're very, very sought after and impossible to get. There are 5 or 6 huge Raptors collectors, of which I know and I talk to often, and they have most of them. So if I had to make my own, it would be a 2019-20 Pascal Siakam championship tag auto.
Siakam.
Yeah, Siakam's my main PC. I think I counted it the other day. I have like 115 Siakam cards. He was
Spicy
like
P.
He was one of the players I really fell in love with through like 2017, 2018, 2019. And he's one of the guys I still collect now, even though we traded him away. So yeah, to get that as a championship tag would be the best. There's obviously other cards like I would love the same essentially, but for Kawhi Leonard, same for Kyle Lowry, same for DeMar DeRozan. But yeah, Pascal Siakam's my main guy.
Shall I say? I thought you might have gone for the like an image of Kawhi squatting with Embiid over him as that ball's dropping, and that's just iconic moment right there.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those things that those cards, especially the Kawhi autos from the championship year, he was only there for a year.
Yep.
It's one of those that haven't quite entered my realm of possibility yet because they're so expensive. So it's kind of like a realm of cards that like I'll get there one day for my personal collection. That day has not come yet.
I know that feeling. I tell you, especially with obviously my PC being Patrick Mahomes. It's one of the most expensive quarterbacks. It's going to be very difficult, but yeah, it is what it is.
Exactly.
What made
Expensive
you
to
become a
love.
Raptors fan? What drew you to Toronto and the Raptors?
So I started university in 2015, and that's when I really got into basketball through uh, just having more free time and just getting into it. And for some reason, my criteria when I decided to pick a team, I was like, I want a team that's got a really likable duo. Like,
Okay.
I don't know why I want two players that are like, they're kind of like the cornerstone behind the team. And then I went through, read a ton of articles, went through every NBA team, and I was like, cool, I'm left with two choices. The Raptors, who have DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, or I have the Golden State Warriors, who have Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. And I was like, they've just won a title. I'm going to look like a glory hunter. Let's go Toronto Raptors. I also like the fact that they weren't American and they were Canadian. I like the fact that they were different. Not many teams in pro sports have a dinosaur on their jersey. Um, and then yeah, from that season, so from the 2015-16 season on, that's just when I stuck with them. I had a fair few years of LeBronto at the start of us
Mhm.
getting to the um, Eastern
Think
Conference
of it. Yeah,
Finals
yeah.
and in the playoffs and just getting beat by LeBron every single time. And then eventually we won the chip in 2019. And yeah, as a basketball fan or any sports fan, I would say specifically any American sports fan, seeing your team win a title, it could be a once in a lifetime thing. So you just take it, you cherish it, you enjoy it, and you never take it for granted.
Yeah, I think that championship was like for the neutral. Like so many people who weren't even a massive basketball fan were just drawn in for that run, that Kawhi run, that the shot over Embiid, the whole thing of let's face it, they're the underdogs. No one thought they would actually do what they did, and they did
Hmm.
it, and it was crazy. It was crazy.
Exactly.
It was crazy. Is there anything else about Toronto? Are you a Maple Leafs fan, or is it just strictly
Nope.
basketball? And you've
Just
no
basketball.
basketball.
So the other US sport I follow a lot is the NFL, and for that, I'm a Vikings fan.
Oh,
Um, so that was just because they were the first NFL team I'd ever heard of. So I went with them. Ended up working quite nicely that both of my American sports teams play in purple,
yeah,
um, and they're both relatively close to each other.
yeah. Minnesota,
Um,
very northern. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like having one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. Don't really follow baseball or ice hockey. So yeah, it really is mainly those two. I got lucky enough to go to the Vikings game in London a couple of weeks ago, and I went to, like I said at the start of the show, I went to Toronto at the end of 2019. I saw them play one game in Atlanta and then three games in Toronto as well, which was
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah, that's a trip and a half. That's a trip and a
Yeah.
half. So you obviously we know you've got a big Raptors collection. How big is your Vikings collection?
My Vikings collection is fairly small.
Okay.
So I'm in general, I'm a big sports fan. So like this time of year for me is the best time of year because in October, November, start of December, there is football, which is my first love. I'm a Manchester United fan. Uh,
Boo! Obviously being a
you know what
Manc,
happened.
Man City fan. Come on, us
Um,
Mancs. Typical Londoner. Hey, typical soft Londoner.
hey, my dad was a
United.
United fan. That's my out. So I'm a United fan. I am a huge basketball fan, huge NFL fan, huge F1 fan as well. Um, so at the moment, this time of year, all four sports are
Everything's
on
on.
at one time. On Sunday, there is like all I'm going to be doing is watching sport because there's an F1 race in Brazil. The Vikings play the Colts. The Raptors are playing someone, and United are playing as well. So it's such a good weekend. What that means is it makes collecting cards very expensive
Yeah.
because like one of the main reasons why I don't really collect Man United cards is it's not because I like them less. If I took my equivalent in a Raptors card and I got a Kawhi Leonard or Pascal Siakam auto whatever, it's a tenth of the price of what a Wayne Rooney or Cristiano Ronaldo United card is going to be. because globally football is just so much more popular, and Man U are so much more popular than the Raptors are. So when I kind of look at like, okay, I've got this much money I want to spend on cards, would I rather these Raptors cards or this United card? It becomes an easy choice. So I
Yeah.
do have some, but my football collection is definitely my smallest. Then it's my NFL. The NFL I find I love, and I'm in 2 fantasy leagues. I've got a fair few nice Justin Jefferson cards, and then a few PC cards as well. But outside of that, I find football values fluctuate so much. It's
Yep.
such a gamble anytime you buy a card that isn't just going to sit in your PC forever, that I'm like, okay, let's kind of stay back. So I kind of be very specific. I've got one big auto for like kind of the big players. So Stephon Diggs when he used to play with the Vikings, Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen. And then I've got a few Jeffersons as well on my hit list, and it has been for a while. Is a on card Justin Jefferson auto. I've got a sticker rookie auto to 25, but I want to get an on card one.
Yeah.
But like with Patrick Mahomes, when your PC is the best player in the league or the best wide receiver in the league, it's tough. Um, and then from NFL, it kind of steps up from there into F1.
Oh.
I've got my main PC in F1 is Lewis Hamilton. Um, so I own a lot of F1 cards, a lot of Lewis Hamilton cards. I'm also a huge rainbow collector as well. That's my big weakness in the hobby. Like I think I have 9 or 10 rainbows currently going on at the moment, and I've got them all in
Wow.
the spreadsheet, kind of ticking off as and when I need them. So I've got a big Lewis Hamilton rainbow from 2020 Topps Chrome going on, and also again, Lewis Hamilton is very expensive, but should be worth the same, if not more, than I buy it for. So then after that, then it goes Raptors. So it's kind of in that order of what I collect and what I buy.
Yeah, very expensive with Justin Jefferson and Lewis Hamilton, by the way. Just to put that out there, you know.
Yep, like that's why I like the Raptors, because like I was buying last night I bought a card, like I said, from the Toronto Raptors number one first round pick last year, Grady Dick, and I bought his rookie card to 24 for $35. And I was like, that kind of stuff is wonderful. If I wanted to do that with a Kobe Mainu or an Alejandro Garnacho, I'm paying 10x.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I can't justify that. Like I would love to, and I have in my Man U collection, I have one Kobe and I have two Rashfords. But other than that, it's very, very limited.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I think I said like you buy the rookie from the Raptors and it's $35. Imagine buying this year's rookie from Minnesota Vikings. He's not even played a game, but JJ McCarthy's price is still sky high because of the
Yes.
potential. It's like he's not played now. He's going to be injured all year. It's crazy. It said that it's
Yep.
yeah, it's absolute. The NFL market is the craziest. I think fantasy has a lot to do with it. I think fantasy is
Yep.
such a big thing in America, so it's sort of a week in, week out scenario. There's not much like it. It's just it's bonkers.
I made sure before the season started just to kind of like have some sort of like a greater emotional investment into it. I bought a couple of Sam Darnold cards
Yeah,
because I was like, they're cheap. I want to feel like I'm invested in this guy. Like I have his rookie cards. I can fully get behind him. They're currently at PSA at the moment, but the last time I checked, one of them had already 4x'd in price. Um, so that's when it really tests the collector versus
uh,
um, business side of things, because I also know, is Sam Darnold going to be the starter next year with JJ McCarthy? Maybe, maybe not. Sam Darnold's not going to be here for 10 years. I know that.
yeah,
Um, so do I just take the money and run and sell the card when it gets back, or do I hold on to it? That's always a constant challenge because, yeah, bringing it back to grading for a sec, that's also one of the things that's great about it is I get to grade a lot of my own cards, and that's something I've kind of started doing more on my own Instagram as well, is showing people what I'm grading, why I'm grading it. Um, and kind of getting into the process of that, because before I was always just so focused on other people and kind of like the numbers in the business. I was like, people know that I grade my own cards. I just don't
yeah,
really show it anywhere. So it's nice to be able to show like, oh, this month I'm grading a couple of Sam Darnolds, a couple of Zions, a couple of Trey Youngs, like that kind of side of things is really nice as well. But yeah, it
yeah.
does make it difficult when you grade a PC card and it comes back a 10. You're like, are you still a PC card, or am I just going to take the money and then use it for something else?
Yeah, when it comes to Sam Donald, my advice would be there to sell. Let's face it, the rookie cards aren't in Viking stuff. It's Jets. Like you said, he's not going to be the guy. You get your profit and invest in. Maybe put it towards a JJ on card is what I'd say.
Exactly. His Donruss Elite stuff is out, and weirdly enough, Donruss Elite is one of my favorite products.
Oh.
So yeah, getting like a nice card, because also I'm thinking as well, every off season you get dips. So I'm like, if I can hold
Yeah.
out until next May or June, like there's no chance that JJ's McCarthy's cards are going to do anywhere from now to then other than go down. There's going to be more supply. He's not going to be playing. The hype will start in like July, August with like the national, and like people then start to invest in him before the season starts. But in April, May, when the Super Bowl's been and gone and the football market is dead, that will be a great time to then say, okay, let's give myself a bit of budget and let's see what JJ McCarthy cards I can get to kind of pick up before the season starts.
Yeah, it's a smart play. It's a smart play. It is. Obviously, I'm conscious of time. So I've only been for an hour and 5, which I appreciate your time. I'm gonna. Anything you want to talk about? I've got last couple of questions for you. I'll start with the fun one. Death row, last meal. What is it? Starter, main, dessert, and a drink of your choice as well.
Starter, I'm going to keep it very simple. Starter, I'm going for buffalo chicken wings.
From any
Like
particular
there's,
place?
pardon?
From any particular place? Is there a certain place you've been to that just that much better?
There was a really good place I went to in Canada. Can't remember the name of it. But no, just a really good buffalo bowl of buffalo chicken wings, mix of drums and flats,
All right now.
with like a blue cheese dip. Very simple. There's so many other options I could have gone. There's like nachos, or there's a very rogue shop, but there's a really great steak restaurant in London that does what they call a pig's head on toast, which is like slow braised pork from the pig's cheek,
Okay.
with like this really rich gravy. Like that's a really pretentious answer, um,
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
but I'll stick with the buffalo chicken wings.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
Maine is really, really tough because it's so hard to not give the obvious answer of just a steak. Um,
So good though.
a
So good.
steak is so good. A roast dinner is so good. Um, it's really, really tough. I will go. What do I go for? What do I go for?
The heat was on. The pressure was on.
I will go for a roast dinner. I will go for
Ooh.
a roast chicken with rosemary and thyme roasted potatoes, garlic tender stem broccoli, a honey and soy carrots and parsnips, with a cauliflower cheese with Yorkshire puddings and stuffing and gravy.
Oh,
I'm in
Jesus.
that Christmas mood already.
I could tell. I was like waiting some pigs and blankets to pop up. Then I was like, "This is Christmas dinner right here. This is good."
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Eggs
oh,
and
it's
blankets
good.
I can take or leave. Sure. Why not?
Yeah, yeah. I don't mind. Why not? It's last meal. Why not? Why not? What's
And
the
then
dessert? Yeah, dessert.
dessert is my normal classic go-to is an Eton mess.
Okay.
Some fruit, some meringue, um, or I can be really pretentious and go like a cheese board. Um,
Ooh.
do love a cheese board. Um, so yeah, I will. My personal favorite is an Eton mess, so I'll go with that.
Okay. And what's a drink? What you washing this down with?
The drink after the meal,
I mean, you can have it during before. You might have to have a few different drinks there. When it's white with the
there will be a
chicken.
few different drinks. Like
Yeah.
the drink at the start of the meal is a
Few
amaretto
wings.
sour cocktail,
Okay.
just to kick things off straight away.
Okay.
The drink during the meal is probably a really nice lager. Um,
A lager. Okay.
Yep, a really nice cold beer, just constantly being topped up throughout the meal. And then after dessert, I will go with an Oreo milkshake.
Oh, you just doubled down, aren't you? I don't eat a mess, then get I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. I do like it. That's good. That's good. That's got me a bit hungry. I'm now thinking, how is it only 2:15 and I'm this hungry? But okay,
I'm
I
thinking
like
I've
that.
still got like a month and a half to wait until Christmas dinner, but all good.
You can buy the stuff in shops now. It's fine. You could, yeah, you
Exactly,
do a practice run. That's what it's all about. Do a practice run.
exactly.
What are your thoughts on the hobby going forward? Are we in a, have we, I won't say peaked. I mean, I'm going to mainly go to UK. Yeah, like obviously we got shows every weekend. We had one, was it a month ago, where it was 3 shows up and down the country on the same day. Are we overdoing it? Are we not there yet? Are we where do you think we are? Where do you think we're going to get to?
The thing is, the hobby is one of the most interesting markets in the world because it is completely unregulated. Like, no one is regulating the price of the sale of a sports card. No one is regulating anything to do with the hobby. There's no big governing board or organization. So, what free market economics tells us is it will always equilibrate at some point. If shows that are all happening are too expensive and don't get enough people, they will cease to exist. We've seen that happen already.
Yep.
If people that are in the hobby purely for monetary gain aren't getting the monetary gain, they will leave. So I think looking at the UK itself, I think I'm a little bit surprised that it's kind of slowed down in the last few years, especially in the basketball collecting scene. We're not getting as many, if you just see at how many Facebook posts the big groups are getting of buying, selling, trading. But then I think the hobby is a global hobby. You can buy, sell, ship anywhere. You can buy cards anywhere. Every company now has their own vault where you can store cards. You've got
Yep.
places in the US, Australia, China that you can ship your cards to and kind of operate those services. So I'm kind of trying to not take a UK view of the hobby because I think it's so interlinked that you don't need to. Um, the biggest thing that I would always say, and I always say to everyone, is you will not be in this hobby for long if you don't actually collect yourself. And you see this all the time with people who say they love sports cards and you ask them who their PC is and they wouldn't be able to tell you because they're just in it for a business, and that's fine. And it I can't knock them for that. I can almost definitely say they won't be doing the same thing in 5 years time. You have to kind of ground yourself in why you're here in the first place. And then if you want to do things like open up a shop or do breaks or run a grading service, then that's the sustainable way to do it. If you enter it as just, I'm here to make money, that's where you start to run into issues. And that's where I think also we're going to start to run into issues in the US is with fanatics and the monopoly we're seeing coming into effect. It's a little bit worrisome that I'm not going to say Fanatics or Tops are better than the other. Both of them are terrible in their own ways. They both have their issues. So it would be very rich of me to say one is better than the other. But I'm sad that a lot of my favorite Panini designs, things like Contenders rookie tickets or Color Blasts or the Rated Rookie logo, will just cease to exist because Tops has now got all of the licenses.
Yep.
And because the market is so unregulated, it needs competition. Competition is a good thing. We see it in the grading services in the UK now. You've got people like the Sub Center who are the cheapest around and will do it the fastest. You've got Aaron running the grading club who has a very well established business, really focusing on sports cards. You've got me focusing on kind of the higher end market now, but also that kind of care, the inspection, looking at the cards, assessing the condition. Competition is important because it's caused all three of us to kind of differentiate and make ourselves unique. When you take away that competition, it doesn't allow to breed innovation. It doesn't allow for the consumer to get the best of anything. If Tops control every major license in the US and they have a problem, it's not like you can go anywhere else. With football, I actually think we have a very healthy relationship because Panini has some licenses, Tops has some licenses. You get some people that will prefer the Panini designs for things like the World Cup. You'll get some people that prefer the Tops designs for things like the Champions League. And that kind of competition is really healthy. Having it all or nothing is dangerous, I think.
Yeah, I've said it on numerous podcasts now. It's the the Fanatics went about it the wrong way. I think yeah, they had if they are in it for as much as they say they want to grow the hobby and say that you have to get that Panini deal done. You have to get the Panini deal done because what they've done now this year, these last 2 years, we've had the generational talent of Victor Wanyama in unlicensed stuff with autograph or
Yeah.
no autograph but license. Come on, come on.
But then that breeds from Panini's incompetence of every patch they've released so far of Wembanyama has been non-associated.
Yep.
Like, they're the ones with the license. They're the ones that have the ability to put his real jerseys,
Jerseys.
even if it's player worn and not game worn,
Yeah.
in cards that have him with the logo on it. But they haven't. So whilst I don't necessarily love the unlicensed stuff, the fact that the only card currently you can get that has an actual piece of Victor Wembanyama's jersey is a card that has him wearing an unlicensed jersey. It it makes no sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's incompetence. And what I would love to see is, and I obviously with the licensing agreements being 2-3 years,
Yeah.
we won't see it for a while. I would love to see both have the license and both just compete, because I would love to see people being like, oh, what's worth more in 3 or 4 years' time? This player's Prism card, fully licensed, or this player's Topps Chrome card,
Chrome.
fully
Yeah.
licensed. And you give the collectors the choice. And yes, if you want to have specific signatures and autographs, then that's fine. That's down to the player and whatever deal they sign. But it would be great to just have both. And we won't, because Topps want as much money as they can. The way they do that is make Panini products worthless by not having the license, and therefore everyone is driven to Topps, which
Yeah.
yeah, it's not great. But like I said, I'm still just going to focus on what I like collecting, and we'll go from there.
It'll be interesting to see the price of, like, you got Prism 2012, Prism 13 out. How they stack up, in the NFL, NBA, because of historically, they do keep rising. I think there's a big spike the other day in Select as well from 2012.
Yeah.
So now, there's always end of an era. Whether it'll be short term, we'll see. I hope so. I hope, for the love of God, it gets done. I would, again, if Fanatics had it and the license was shared. I mean, it just makes perfect sense. You want to grow the hobby, that you can buy, said, the Topps Chrome rookie autos, Topps Panini Prism rookie autos, and like I said, and people actually decide which they prefer the most. And if Topps could do that, Topps could get the deal done with Panini, and that's it. Just give us what we want.
Yeah,
I'll buy
that's the biggest thing
flawless.
for me, because you can guarantee there are so many people. Because I've seen so many interviews with different people, whether it's PSA or Fanatics, that are true collectors themselves. There is zero chance the higher ups at Topps and Fanatics don't want Panini cards. They can say it from a business point of view, but
Oh,
if
yeah.
they say for their own PC, whether it's going from Ben Simmons to Wembanyama to Derek Jeter, they want their players obviously in their licensed jerseys, but you can lie all you like and say that Topps is better than Panini. You can't say you don't like a Color Blast. You can't say that
Yes.
Downtowns and Kabooms aren't iconic cards. Are they overprinted now? Sure, but they're still iconic cards, and you can't truly, as a collector, say you want to operate in a world where those cards are then unlicensed junk and become meaningless, because then that doesn't suit the collector. It's a collector first hobby, and
Yep.
by cornering the licenses to one company, it's not putting the collector first, it's putting the company first.
Yes, I think it's with Dan. Obviously, Dan well, Sports Card UK. We were saying how the war's changed now. It's gone from the league licenses, and now it's a lot of players. Panini signed Caitlin Clark, Topps going signed Victor Wembanyama, and it's just like honestly, they're just ripping the collector here. They're just pulling us apart. As a collector, it's just horrible. It's now getting horrible.
Yeah, because then you also, like, one of the big conversations I was having with guys this time last year is what's going to be worth more money. Victor Wembanyama's Black Prism 1 of 1, licensed, non-autograph,
Yep,
or his Topps Chrome autograph Superfractor 1 of 1, non-licensed.
unlicensed.
I haven't checked, I haven't seen the data, but I was like, on one hand, the 1 of 1 autograph should be worth more. On the other hand, licensed is everything. And as a collector, you shouldn't be forced to make that choice. At least you should have the Topps Chrome be licensed, and if Topps win the race for his autograph, that's fine. That's, at the end of the day, that's money that's going to the player as part of their deal. Cool. If you want to have exclusive agreements with specific athletes, that's fine. We see it already in football that Topps have specific people that sign with them. For Panini
Yeah,
and Futera have people that sign with them, and it gives them a, what I would call, a competitive edge. What isn't competitive or fair is if you just take away all the branding and you say, "Yep, you don't have any of the licenses we do." So
yes. Just like I said, from let's face it, the core of it, the collector is the one that's hurting the most. These businesses are
it
just
is.
cashing in, cashing out, and pulling us apart, and it's the collectors that hurt the most. It's a shame. I think the only plus side Tops have got with this Chrome, the refractive Victorian is the photography is not horrendous, where you can tell how bad the
Yes,
license is, and that's
they've
what
done a
could
very good
sway.
job.
Yeah, that's what could sway. Not all the cards, but Victorian specifically, they made that decision to go, listen, make sure he's got his back to it and turned, because I've seen some of them, it just looks horrible. The blank purple, I think it's Steph Curry, like and it's just like,
Yeah,
oh
some of
god,
the Raptors ones are really bad because the
yeah,
Raptors
and
jersey is red with like a black chevron on it, and it has the words North in it. But because North is part of the Raptors branding, they had to remove the letters, and now it just looks really weird. Some of them look really good, like the Wembanyama ones,
yeah,
but ultimately, I don't want in 3 years' time. I don't want to be seeing a Scotty Barnes color blast for Panini and it be completely unlicensed, because then you take one of my favorite cards and now it's not only worthless, but it's also meaningless. And then suddenly I have to go and get a Topps Helix instead, which is kind of their equivalent, just doesn't
yeah,
look as good.
no,
I'm like, it does, like you said, the only person that loses by any type of exclusive licensing agreement, whether it's Panini or Topps or Upper Deck, the only person that loses is the collector.
yeah. This is why I think I said, when this first thing with Fanatics happened, it's like they should have bought Leaf. That's what I liked about Leaf. Leaf got all these, I mean, they still do it to this day. All these college quarterbacks are getting done. Obviously, got Erling Haaland, and they lease him out, sort of thing. And I like that. That's what it should be done. I think maybe Topps would do it Panini. I don't know, but that would at least alleviate a bit of pressure. To if Panini said, listen, we'll loan out Caitlin Clark to do some cards for you, and you loan out Wembanyama some cards for us or something. I don't know, just as a collectors, we want, this is what we should be their forefront, and we never are, and that's what kills
No,
them. You know what
I mean,
It's,
even then, like with the autographs, I don't mind a huge amount. Just let Panini pay to use the license.
Yeah.
Like, if Topps, because it's Topps not wanting the competition, it's Topps saying, well, if Panini have the license, we'll sell less Topps Chrome because people will buy Panini Prism instead. And it's like, but that's what people want. Like,
that's the
you
market.
will have people top to bottom in your organization ultimately sad that their team in 2 or 3 years' time is going to have a rookie Prism card and it's going to be unlicensed. Prism is iconic. You can choose
Yeah.
whether you like it or whether you agree with how expensive Prism cards are. Prism is iconic, and the only person that hurts when Prism is unlicensed is the collector.
100%. Well, I've got conscious of time. It was nearly 90 minutes. So I thank you for your time. We'll have to get you on for round 2, because I think it's very insightful. I think a lot of people have learned a lot. I've learned a lot as well. Speaking to you, and I'm glad to hear your story. And I think yeah, I obviously don't know the work that goes on behind closed doors. So it's good to hear like the work you put in, the hours you put in, and the setbacks you took from companies, that are multi-million-dollar companies that happen to force your company back. And if you still bounce back and put the work in to be where you are, yeah, it's a massive honor to have you on and share that story. So I want to thank you. I appreciate you, and hopefully get you on soon.
No, thank you. Like I said, like we touched on kind of the start of the journey. We spoke about like 2021, but there's still
Yeah,
like 3 more
3
years
years.
of everything that happened. Also, what goes on in the day to day, educating people about grading and what that process actually looks like. So, yeah, we've gone on for 90 minutes. I could easily talk for another 90 minutes. So, yeah, I'll definitely come back at some point.
Appreciate that. We'll definitely do like one where we just say, right, we'll do like a grading special. So we'll go
Yeah.
through like the of getting cards graded and stuff like that. That would make sense. And we can go back to your story again, because
Sounds
they've
good.
got a 2-year gap, 3-year gap here to fill in as well.
Exactly.
But no, I appreciate that. Thanks everyone listening to Spot. Again, the links will be there for Jim's Movember link to donate to the cause. I also reach out to myself. I'm pretty sure Jim's DMs will be open if you need to talk to someone, if you're struggling. We will offer the best help we can, but there's also obviously actual registered help out there for you to go and to look for. Do not be afraid to reach out, though. This stigma does not exist in the card hobby. We try and get it out. So appreciate you, Jim. Appreciate everyone for listening. You guys are the real MVPs, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.